And now I'll be kicking off the presentation of paginated reports on a budget. So what we'll be covering in this session today is mainly why should we use paginated reports, what are they, and how do they differ from Power BI standard reports. And then we'll go through 3 architectures that all use different Azure tools that can help you in creating a cost-effective architecture for creating paginated reports. So first, again, a short introduction about myself. I'm mainly a BI architect, but I also like to have my to make my hands dirty and to try new things that are in preview. Paginated report is not in preview; it's fully in Power BI itself, and we'll now go through a live demo of it. So if everything works fine, you should be able to see my screen. And if we go, for example, to a specific Power BI workspace, this is the new look. If we go to the old look, then we have, we're very familiar with these settings. We have our standard reports, and we can see that there's 2 types of reports here. Mainly, we also see that the icon is different. In the most standard traditional reports, we see this, but now we can see that the logo is completely different. If we open a paginated report, we'll see here that it has 1 parameter, and that we can drop the I, that there's a. We can select on something, and if we press view report, then the data changes. What is different with a normal Power BI report, it's not interactive. So if I start pressing on these bars, we cannot really interact with it as with a normal Power BI report. What is very helpful is if you scroll down, that it's more printable. It can have a header and a footer. So I'll export it to a PDF. Voilà. And here we can see that it's in a very nice layout. It's very printable, that it has a nice footer repeated on every page, and that it also has a header information that we can customize and put some custom information on it. If you would do that, I've done the same with a normal Power BI report. And let's compare the differences. So this is a normal Power BI report that also contains kindly the same data as it. This one is more interactable with it, and so you can filter on it. But the problem is if you export it to a PDF. I've exported it, but I need to export it to a PDF. Then it takes a while. I pre-downloaded it. So this would be the export. And so the problem here is you're seeing the page that you're seeing in your screen, but with large tables, you can't really scroll with it, so they're not printer friendly. So as you can imagine, paginated reports are far more friendly when printing or when providing handout to people. If people need to go on places where there's no internet and they need to consult their data, then they can have a printable report. Another example would be profit and losses. If you would print a P&L in Power BI, it would not be so dynamic. If you would use a paginated report, then you can. It's more easy to print it and to hand it out to management. So here, the standard reports, they look very eye-catching. It's a bit more difficult to make the paginated reports more eye-catching, but it's possible. Here on the standard report, you have you have no pixel perfect formatting, but in a paginated report, that's more possible. However, we're all accustomed with the way of creating reports within Power BI, and this is our standard user interface. If we would do it with a paginated report, it would look like this. So firstly, you need to download Power BI Report Builder. Let me try to get it on the screen. Yes. And Power BI report builder looks like this. So the report that we just consulted a few minutes ago is now in this more technical way of working. So what you have here is you have a data set to a data source that is in Power BI already, which can be an Azure analysis services. I'm now connected to a standard Power BI report, but it could also be just a SQL Server database, and there are others as well. We'll go through them in a second. Creating your reports is a bit more technical, as you can see here. You need to create data sets for everything that you see. This is a data set. This is a data set on its own. This is a data set on its own. And it's not like you can link them. You really need to write technical code to retrieve them and already know upfront what you want to do with the data or how do you want to present it. Even the parameter that you see on top is a data set. So if I can run it in my kind of debug mode, and I hope this works, and it does. Then you can see that this is also a query that I first needed to design, and then I can use it as a parameter. So what does a query look like? This is, for example, a query. This is written in DAX. You could also write SQL if your data source understands SQL, or MDX, or any other code snippet that you find, and that can be understood by the underlying service. So I've, this is an example. I'll try to execute it. Yeah. Okay. So, as I said, if there are people familiar with SQL Server reporting services, which is like more an old technology, but it's still very useful if you want to create printable reports. It's just the same interface, just the same, nearly the same functionalities. With the old on-premise reporting services, you can customize some more. But with paginated reports, 99% of all functionalities have already been copied to Power BI itself. So these things are good to know. These are all the data sources you can connect to, mainly the SQL servers, being it on a managed instance or in premise, or on an Azure SQL database, on an Azure analysis services, or on a Power BI data set, and then some other sources, for example, Oracle and Teradata that you can use. And then if you're familiar with reporting services, following functionalities will not be possible in a paginated report, and that's shared data sets, data sources, which means data sources that are reused over multiple paginated reports, as well as shared data sets, click through and drill through to other reports. Not possible by default in the builder, but you can alter it by using parameters. I'll go through that by dynamically creating your URL, but I'll go through that at the end of my session. And also linked reports or embedded reports in which you embed one report into the other. That's also not possible. And custom fonts, but I don't think that's really a showstopper. What is good to know, paginated reports comes with the Power BI premiums. But as we all know, Power BI premiums are not so very cheap. It's already, the price starts at 4,000 euros per month, 4,500 if I'm not mistaken. But we can also use them with Power BI embedded. So I'll restate Power BI Premium. You need to buy it up front, and you're billed by the month. And every month that you buy, you need to pay it 24/7. With Power BI Embedded, that's not the case. So you only pay by the second. So if you only use it for 1 hour in a month, then you will always be billed for 1 hour in the month. So in my scenario, I've listed here all embedded instances. And here we can see that the cheapest one to run a paginated report on is 5,000 euros if we would run it 24/7 for 30 days in a month. Now, this session is about cost effectiveness. So we try to reduce this amount as much as possible. And therefore, I'll show you 3 architectures that can help you with that. Now, why have I striked through these first 3 instances? Well, that's because the paginated reports is only available with the A4 to A6 SKUs for embed or test dev scenarios. But you can also use them in a creative way and spin them up whenever you like, send out reports, and then spin it down again. If we could implement such a scenario where we spin up Power BI embedded capacity between 8 and 9 every working day. I made the price for every day, so also for Saturdays and Sundays. Then the price for using paginated reports would be decreased, and we would only pay 206 euros per month. So that's a good increase, a good decrease of the price actually. Now, how do we do that? And therefore, I'll give you a walkthrough. And this may also be for the people that are not really familiar with Azure. I'll also give a small demonstration. So if you go to the Azure portal, we can create a resource, and there we'll create an Azure runbook or an Azure automation account. Now, what is an Azure automation account? It actually allows you to either run Python or PowerShell. In our scenario, we'll use PowerShell, and PowerShell is a technical language to write, but you only need to do 2 steps. So if you enter your credentials here, you choose a location and you press create, then you will have a standard Azure automation runbook. So if I go back to home, I've already created it, and it is here. It is here at, this is our Azure automation account. So here we can have multiple runbooks, and every runbook can execute a script. But the first thing that we need to do is we need to import a module. What is a module? A module allows you that you can import a package that contains all kind of functions from Microsoft, and that allows you to run these pre-configured packages. What we will be using is a task within the package, and the task is called resume or suspend your Power BI embedded. So actually, so first we need to import it. So we go to models, to modules here. We browse our gallery. We go to import. We search for Azure RM Power BI embedded, and we import it. And this allows you that in all of our runbooks, and I'll show you a runbook in a minute, that you can use the functionalities that are stored within this package of working with Power BI embedded. Okay, and then we create a simple runbook. So this is, for example, resume the Power BI embedded. And I can edit the code here. And this code is all created automatically. You don't need to look at it. It's just what it does. It authenticates your script to your Azure account. And it says, OK, I'm here. Please allow me to run this code. And then you just need to input your parameters, which instance, so where your paginated, where your Power BI embedded is located, or how it's called, and where is it stored in which resource group. And then by using this quote, you can simply resume your Power BI embedded. And then afterwards, we do the same with suspend, which actually means pause. So here it's just the same script with a difference here. Instead of resume, it is suspend. So if we would suspend our paginated reports, what we would see is if we now start it, we will see that it's running. It will take a while, maybe a minute. And then we'll see that our paginated report here, we will not be able to exit it anymore. And that's a good thing, because we will also not be built anymore for it. So all the reports within this workspace will stop working, and we will see that in an instance. So I'll refresh. Oftentimes you got to refresh, refresh. And then it's logging into Azure, and then it will disable my embedded capacity, and then I will not be built for it anymore. So it succeeded. my thing. And now if I try to go back to my paginated report, it says unable to render it. It has been stopped or paused, which also means that we're not built for it anymore. So this is a very good thing. Now we'll try again and use our resume script. And if we start it, then it will start resuming again. And also this takes 1 up till 2 or 3 minutes to resume. So that's not a lot of time, but it's also not very snappy as well. And then the last piece of the puzzle is we need to make sure that it starts at 8 o'clock and that it ends at 9. And how we do that, it's also very simple. So the changes that we did here is we created our Azure runbook. We imported a module, we add 1 line of code, and now we need to schedule it. And how we schedule it is here. So resume, I can go to schedules, I add a schedule, and now I want to say, okay, every morning, I'll give it a random name, every morning at 8, starting from, let's say, tomorrow at 8 o'clock Belgian time for every day. This, and then I still need to press OK. Don't forget to press on this button. Voila. And then it will start every morning, starting from tomorrow. It will resume your Power BI embedded capacity so that it's accessible between 8 and 9. What you can then do, let me just see if my Power BI embedded capacity is back online. No, I need to kick off the, yeah, I know it's already running. What you can then do is first wait until it started, until it works again. But what you can then do is that similar to other reports, you can schedule it. You can send your report every time at 8. Yeah, I don't have any access, but I'll show you how you can schedule it. It's just the same with paginated reports. You just go here to subscribe, you add a new subscription, and you say, okay, I want to send this report to me every time at 8 in the morning. I'll then save and close. And then this report will be sent to you while Power BI paginated report is running. Okay, still. So this is a first architecture that can be applied, and you will only pay around 206 euros per month to make use of the paginated reports feature. On the other hand, what you don't have is really customer interaction. And so if one of your salespersons say, okay, and now I want to consult this report, then it can only be consulted between 8 and 9 in the morning. So that's not really a feasible scenario. There may be scenarios that in which that is possible, that you only send it between 8 and 9, but not in all cases. If you want to have it more flexible, we'll go through a second architecture. And what we'll do there is we'll first create a Power App that allows business users to start or stop Power BI embedded capacity. And then if it presses on a button, a Power Automate will run, and then it will run your Azure automation function, so your module in which it starts or it stops. The business user then needs to wait for a few minutes, and then he can access his report. What I've also added is like a parameter where you can say, okay, how long do you expect it to be running? So let me quickly show you such an app. So this is just for your information. Power Apps, Power BI, and Microsoft Power Automate are all part of Microsoft offering. And wait, give me a second. And so they're all part of what Microsoft is offering, and they're very business user oriented. So let me quickly open my app that I made here. So this is an app. I can say, okay, I want to have it running for like 50 minutes. I'll then press on this button. resume my Power BI embedded capacity. Then after 15 minutes, it will be suspended, or I can manually trigger it as well. So what does this actually do? As a source for this Power App, I need a table. And where did I put this table? I can either put it on an Azure SQL database or a normal SQL database that is located somewhere. But in my scenario, I've created a SharePoint list. Let me search for the SharePoint list. Here you can see the SharePoint list. And you can see that just now an item has been inserted where I ask to resume it, and then with 15 minutes of activity. And then based on the SharePoint list, because this Power Apps GUI is inputting things on your SharePoint, a Power Automate is triggered. Now, what actually is Power Automate? If we go to flow.microsoft.com, it lets you allow processes, even if you're a simple business user, so no coding required. Dismiss. So resume Power BI embedded capacity. This is the one I made. So the first step is I'll look at all our SharePoint lists. And when an item is created or modified in this specific list, then I can go through the next step. So it just now also executed this script. And then I can say, okay, if my action would be a resume, and then I do this. If my action would not be resume or anything else than resume, then I do that action. Okay, so what I've done here is I've added a Power Automate. So this is also just drag and drop, and then there are some drop downs that you need to fill in that I want to start. Then I want to wait the amount of minutes of activity that I've inputted in the Power Apps via the SharePoint list. And then after a while, it just executes our other automation module, which suspends the Power BI embedded capacity. And then, so for example, if you go to the runs or the run history, here is the run history. We've seen that it started and that it's running. So currently it's also trying to start it up. I think that it will fail because or the automation script will fail because it's already running, but that's not really a problem. Let me see if it's back online. As you see here, yeah, it's back online. But this flow is then a second architecture that you can use. And also something to know is this Power Apps can be embedded within a Power BI report itself, so that people only need to go to powerbi.com and their apps will be there. So they don't need to have other portals. They can just, so as this salesperson would have access to this Power BI app, to that Power App, he presses the button, he waits a few minutes, he can consult his reports, and then after 10 minutes, you stop paying for paginated reports. Okay, that's a second architecture, and it's also very business user friendly. And now there's a last architecture, which requires a bit more coding. And unfortunately, I hope that it will be ready by now. And that's on the 6th of March, Power BI came with a release, and it says that you can now export to PDF by using the Power BI REST API. So the additional complexity that we'll be adding here to this third architecture is we'll be using or we'll be triggering the Power BI REST API to ask our, so we'll start up Power BI paginated, the Power BI embedded capacity. We'll wait for a few minutes. Then we'll ask the report, okay, can you now export it? And then after it has been exported, we can also shut it down again. So there's also, if people, then people just need to input their parameters on, for example, a Power App. You would press on a button and then everything would be done for you. And then after it will be stored somewhere in your mailbox or in a SharePoint location or in a blob storage or whatsoever. I have some very bad news. Unfortunately, this is possible for the normal Power BI reports. It's already in preview if you want to do it with paginated reports. but I didn't know how to access the preview, so I cannot demo this right here. It will be possible within a few days. So that's in Dutch they say a domper op de feestvreugde. But if you would like to implement this, then these are some very interesting blocks that you should follow. And this goes about how you can embed Power BI APIs in Power Automate, not only for exporting reports, but also for refreshing data sources, updating or adding rows to data sources, as well as removing reports from one workspace to the other. And then Chris Webb, which is one of our BI gurus, is also working on a blog series. He's now in his second or third blog, where he also describes a way of creating a custom connector in Power Automate that lets you manage Power BI. Okay, so these are the three architectures. Last thing that I want to show you, how Power BI, standard reports, and the Paginated really can work together, is if you create a dynamic URL. And a dynamic URL can just be created here, for example here, and this can then be part of a measure. So as you can see here, I've added an action to a specific button on my report. And if I'm not mistaken, this is the printable URL. So I use the location of where my report is stored. I then use how my customer is called. So I inputted it here based on which is selected. So for example, now I will select Anton. Anton doesn't have any sales data. Let's find someone that does have sales data. Voila. And if you would now print on it or click on it, then it will automatically start exporting your report by pressing the button within Power BI. So that's really how Power BI paginated reports and Power BI come to shine when they're working together. It's taking a bit longer than I expected. This was my presentation. I hope that you've learned something. And yeah, if there's still, I think there's still time, but I'm open to questions if there are any.
Okay, thank you, Sander. The only question that we've got so far is a question from Nadim asking for how you would rate and compare paginated reports as opposed to Crystal reports, the old school one.
Unfortunately, I'm not so accustomed with Crystal reports. Does he mean reporting services or?
No, SAP Crystal reports.
Okay, we do have our sister company is called Cubis, and they're experienced in SAP products. If it's good for him, I can contact him after the call, and yeah, I'll do a short comparison together with my SAP colleagues.
Yeah, I think it's mainly the comparison that could be made in the past if reporting services was the equivalent of Crystal reports, but it is mainly the same thing. And since paginated reports is just working on becoming the same feature parity as reporting services, I think you can pretty much compare them quite well. But I don't know the nitty-gritty details of SAP Crystal reports either. No. Okay, but I'll just quickly check if there are any more questions, and if there are not, that means that people get some extra time. Okay, but in any case, thank you both, Sander and Lou, for presenting the first DataMine session, a virtual one. Rocky start, to be sure, but I've learned that there are many more mute buttons than there are visible at first sight. So there's some new thing that we learned. And we hope to see everyone again at the next virtual sessions. Okay, thank you.
Thank you all. Bye.